So here to help us break down all of the media landscape news. What a huge day. I was talking to this guy this morning on the phone at like 9:30 in the morning. All of this news breaks around 11, 12 during the day. Tucker Carlson let go at Fox News. Don Lemon let go at CNN. Who better than somebody who knows both of those people and worked at both of those networks than Rick Sanchez, the host of the Rick Sanchez podcast, former CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC host. Rick, Mike, and Nick, thank you for hopping on the podcast with us.
Hi, Nick. You too, Mike.
Yep. Thank
like
you for
putting me. That.
Yeah, man, thank you for putting me second. So you know what?
Right.
Yeah, Rick, let's get to this because I had written out a bunch of questions. We're going to talk about the Fox News lawsuit.
With the hell with them. Throw them away.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I had to because all of a sudden, a man that's a fixture at 8 p.m. with an audience of close to 4 million people that has his own vertical on Fox Nation, a streaming service. This man is synonymous with Fox News Channel. You've been on his program a few times. Yeah. Give me some of your initial reactions of Tucker Carlson getting let go here at Fox News and what it means for the network.
Well, Tucker and I became really good friends over the years for some reason. I don't know why, because we don't agree on a lot of things, but nonetheless, I always thought he was very entertaining and he would always call on me. And I'll tell you one thing about Tucker. Whenever I would call him for anything, I would just call him because I had an idea. He always answered my call and called me back, texted me back. We would, be kind of text fiends there for a while. So in that sense, yeah, he and I became, I wouldn't say close friends, but we were associates, and I thought he was always very respectful. I thought some of the crazy shit that he said on the air was nuts. And I thought many times as a Latino, I was insulted by many of his ideological positions. Don and I were hired at the exact same time, the exact same week at MSNBC. In fact, it was Rick Sanchez, Don Lemon, and the guy who anchors the news there now, Lester Holt. The three of us were actually hired at the same time when they were starting to blow up MSNBC. So yeah, I have a history with both guys. I'll tell you what I was taken aback by. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read the Variety article yet, but apparently everything stems from that Variety article, and that's the reason that Don Lemon was fired. And he comes away in that Variety article very angry. I guess the right term is misogynist, but the women who worked with him thought he was misogynist. That's I respect their opinion, and that's what they said. But beyond that, when you read the article, he sounds like he gets angry a lot about things and people, and that's never a good quality. And then he seemed to confirm it today, where as soon as CNN announced that they had let him go, and I agree with him, they probably should have called him. When CNN fired me, at least, the president of CNN called me personally and said, Rick, we're going to let you go, which I guess it is a little cooler. But the things that he said on Twitter today, the things that Don Lemon said and did on Twitter today, it seemed angry. It seemed a little weird. I'm not sure I would have responded that way, for what it's worth.
Rick, I'm going to test a theory now. I've talked about on this show and just privately with Mike that there were two different versions of Tucker Carlson. Before, we hit the record button tonight, you mentioned knowing Tucker from Crossfire.
Yeah.
As a viewer way back when, and a big support, obviously, of Paul Begala and Jim Carville, I was familiar, with that persona that Tucker was. And like most people on TV, I don't fully assume that's who he is. But it seemed as though the version of Tucker Carlson you knew at CNN had changed by the time he arrived at Fox. Now, is that a case of just the personality got expanded, or is this a case of professional wrestling where he goes to another organization and he's just playing a different version of a character? What actually, because you just mentioned a moment ago, just the reliability, texting, just the communication, what sounds like a professional, albeit politics aside, seemed to have entered a fairly cartoonish persona. Is that a fair estimate?
Well, look, I'll be honest with you. Cable news has a way of consuming you ideologically. And they do it because they have a lot to offer, like millions and millions and millions of dollars, for example, $20 million in some cases, whether you're Anderson Cooper or Tucker Carlson or, who the hell you are, I don't care. It's a lot of money. And no matter how wealthy you are, even if you're a Swanson heir like Tucker Carlson, having a gig that pays you $15-20 million, that's pretty nice. And they also afford you an opportunity to become a superstar within a certain sector of any community. For Fox, it's, angry white guys, Well, if you're an angry white guy and you live in America, and that's almost 40% of the population, and you, in this case, Tucker Carlson, get to be the living embodiment, the persona, the superstar, the Trumpish-like figure in that community, pretty cool. I mean, hey, no one's going to be the superstar for all people in America, but almost having 40% ain't bad. So here's this guy who was bored with his life. He was very wealthy, kind of had nothing to do. The regular media had already kicked him out. Fox picks him up and says, you're a superstar. 40% of America absolutely loves you. All you got to do is keep this thread going where you're there fighting for the little white guy who's being put upon by all the black people and the gay people and the Latino people and all that stuff. And you're going to be an absolute superstar, and you're going to make millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars. A cool gig. So that is why he becomes what he becomes. And if somebody had offered him an opportunity to do that without having to be the guy for the white dudes or maybe for some other group, he probably would have taken that too. So yeah, you're right.
It's a great segue. It funnels into my question because we're going to get into the Fox News lawsuit in just a second. But one of the big things that came out of that suit, it was this discovery phase before the trial of all the text message exchanges between Tucker, Hannity, Laura Ingraham, the producers that were in the background. I've been a former PA, assignment desk editor there at the network. I know what it's like behind the scenes working with Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, and some of these folks. But I want to ask for on-air talent like you, Rick, because one of the big things that came out was Maria Bartiromo kind of circumventing everybody and just putting Sidney Powell on her show whenever she wanted to do. And Tucker, Hannity, and Laura Ingraham were very vocal in like, why is she going on that show? Who cleared this? Who cleared that? How hard would it be for Rick Sanchez, the man I know who yelled at me this morning at 9:30 in the morning about cable news and the way it all foments, right?
Stop appearing on MSNBC.
Right. Sorry. The exposure. There's about 700,000 people watching. Anyway, how hard would it be for you? You're a host of a show. Your producer during these months is like, hey, we're inviting this person on air. That person's blatantly spreading misinformation. I've asked you this before with Carrie Lake. How do you deal with it? But how would you deal with it working within the confines of Fox News as somebody who used to work there? Like, how would you deal with that?
You mean, would I be able to get somebody on if the big cheeses had already decided they didn't like that person and didn't want them on? Would I still be able to?
Or vice versa. Like a producer's like, let's put this person on. It feeds into what big wigs want to do. Like, how would you handle that? Or have you run across that during your career?
Yeah, well, at Fox, it would have been a little tougher because you could do it. Look, yes, neither CNN or MSNBC or Fox are ever going to say to a talent like myself, who was a primetime talent, primetime, that
was funny.
It was funny. They would never chance creating a skerfuffle with a major talent by saying, you cannot do that. You cannot have that person on. However, you would know that the elders do not like your decision. You would soon get a call from the president of the network, whether it's Roger Ailes working at Fox, who would call the anchor personally, or John Klein when I worked at CNN, who would say, Rick, I need to talk to you tonight. And we would have a frank discussion about something. But I had opportunities where I held my ground and said, no, we need to talk to this person, and this person is important, or I'm going to do this story because I think this story is important. But you knew what they liked and what they didn't like. And after a while, you kind of acquiesced. And in Tucker's case, it went the other way. Tucker knew that by doing certain stories and feeding certain ideological lines, he would grow his audience. And the Murdochs were not going to get in the way of that, and neither was Suzanne or whoever happened to be the bosses there at the time. So you do get some independence when editorial independence when you work at Fox and you have your own show. But you can probably say the same thing about MSNBC or CNN when you're in prime time and you're bringing in big numbers. And remember, 80% of all revenues are derived from 8 to 11 o'clock, 8 to 10 o'clock, really, in prime time. So that's important to them. So you can get away with a lot of stuff if and when you want to. And obviously Tucker was playing that card. Listen, by the way, what I have heard, I don't know if you guys are going to be asking me this, and I don't want to be too far ahead of you, but what I'm hearing from my sources is that Fox did not fire Tuck because of what he said having to do with the lawsuit. They fired him for some of the anti-management stances that he had along with that they got tired of his crap, constantly complaining publicly about the Murdochs and about management and about Fox News and how they weren't defending him. And I think they almost feel like he got too big for his britches. And remember, as I was told many times at CNN, they don't care about ratings. Ratings don't mean anything. It ain't crap to these guys. The only thing they care about are subscribers. They don't make their money on ratings. People think it doesn't matter whether you're O'Reilly or Tucker or Maddow or whoever the hell you are. Ratings mean nothing. When I was working at CNN and I had the #1 rated show at CNN, and they put me on at 8 o'clock, and I was bucking up against O'Reilly, and I was beating what's his name, Olbermann. And I remember I went to the president of CNN and we had a meeting in his giant office, and I said to him, the ratings are pretty good. He goes, "We don't care about ratings. Doesn't matter. We don't make our money off of ratings." So it's interesting. You hear a lot of people talking about that today. It means nothing.
Quick break here. We are presented as always by Fresh Roasted Coffee. If you could see my screen here. Fresh Roasted Coffee since 2009. This Pennsylvania company has been delivering fresh roasted coffee. You can check out their website at freshroastedcoffee.com or shop them online through a bunch of different places. I'm going to read you something here. Nick, they roast the freshest coffee beans using the most eco-friendly roasting technology on earth. I happen to have a cup right here of fresh roasted coffee. I always record with it. Nick, why don't you tell the people, you're a coffee snob, why don't you tell the people why they should head on down to freshroastedcoffee.com and buy some of this amazing coffee?
First, Mike, let's talk about flavors. If you are a single origin kind of person like you and myself, they've got you. If you are a flavor person, they've got you as well. Flavor packs, individual items as well. And it's not just coffee, folks. You can also get tea. My wife's a tea drinker, so freshroastedcoffee.com's got her too. But more importantly, you can learn about the coffee. When you get to the website, there's a quiz that tells you what's the coffee that's best for you. Sumatra is my blend, and they got that one right. I can tell you that for sure. They'll do the same for you when you head over to the website.
freshroastedcoffee.com. Go to our episode description right now. There's a link right there, and at checkout, you're going to get a discount for this amazing tasting coffee. Head to freshroastedcoffee.com today. And now back to the show.
Rick, that's a helpful segue for the question that comes up to me about economics, because, at close of today, Fox's stock has dropped 3%. So here you are at the organization, Dan Bongino's out, Tucker Carlson's out. If there's a revenue hit from these changes, I'm asking you to sort of put on, I guess the Murdoch's hat for a moment. What becomes sort of the long-term strategy of recognizing that you're going to take a revenue hit right now, but how do you continue to stay ahead of those waters, maintain a subscriber base that really much was dialed into what Tucker was peddling at 8 p.m. every night?
I do believe, and I don't know if this is the gist of where you're going with your question, but I think there is I think there's some material worth to the statements that Tucker made, which are so obtuse when it comes to what he said about, for example, President Trump. He basically said President Trump was a piece of crap, a madman, a nutcase, whatever he said. I don't remember exact words, but something to that effect. That he shouldn't be believed and that he's embarrassing, and that this whole story about the election being stolen was all crap and a lie. And then he went on the air along with everybody else at Fox and essentially made it sound like Trump's a great guy, a great leader, and it's true that the election was stolen. I think that single statement of everything I've heard from all the other anchors at Fox has stood out to me as the most profound. And I don't think that statement would have survived the rest of the cases that are coming forward against Fox. I think to a certain extent, it may have been important for Fox to separate itself from the guy whose mouth that came from, for the sake of its own credibility. So I wouldn't be surprised if Rupert and Lackland probably sat down and said, this is too much heat, not only from this, and the guy's been burning us, and the guy said this and that. And you know what? Let's cut our losses. We'll find another one. What's the difference? Ratings don't matter anyway. We're Fox News. Fox News generates its own ratings. I remember, what's his name? The fat guy who used to be in charge over there, who I used to talk to him every week.
What, Ailes?
Yeah, Roger. Roger and I would talk all the time. Roger always wanted to hire me. He always wanted to, you're the Latino guy, whatever. And I remember that I asked Roger once, because he had fired a top anchor over there. And I won't say who it is, but her initials are Greta Van Susteren. And I was going home from CNN one night, it was 9 o'clock at night, and I'm on the phone, and Roger calls, Ricky, what are you doing? And I said, Roger, you got rid of Greta, huh? You made a decision? He goes, yeah, I could have paint dry and it would be the same ratings as she's given me. I said, what does that mean? He goes, well, I just don't think anchors matter that much. I can put anybody in there. And he really believed that. And I think to a certain extent that's true along the, in cable news. And that's, I couldn't stop thinking of Roger telling me that today when I saw both Tucker and the other guy at CNN fired today. So
yeah,
like,
that's so
anchors don't matter as much as they think they do.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. It's funny because I worked with Greta for a couple of years, but we'll leave that for the Patreon version.
Well, listen, that's what he said. Okay, don't take it out on me.
Hey, you're just repeating what the guy said, but he's dead and he's not here to help chime in. Anyway, let's start.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is. Yeah,
he died in a bathtub, by the way, just in case you didn't know. And right. He was a hemophilia.
I did not know that. Well, I kind of knew part of that story. Anyway, let's start at the top where we originally were going to go with all this, which was because you mentioned about maybe Lackland and maybe Rupert had said, let's cut our losses. Speaking of losses, I don't have $787 million. I'm not sure the three of us combined have $787 million. And here is a settlement from Fox News to Dominion. This story, obviously breaking, the trial was supposed to happen last week. It got pushed to another day. And then all of a sudden you hear the settlement news come out. What were some of your initial reactions about the settlement? Obviously, they were seeking $1.6 billion in damages. The company's worth about $100 million. So there's no way they were going to get that number. Going to a trial would have involved a lot of testimony from potentially Rupert, some of the on-air talent. So it was kind of like a play chicken from both sides here. Dominion, knowing that they could either get this or get nothing if one person on that jury watches Fox News, whereas Fox News could get run through the water and get everything about their business put on every other outlet out there. What'd you make of the suit and the settlement overall?
Would I have made the decision to settle for a little more than half what they were asking for? 1.6, they got 8, almost 9. Hell yeah. Are you kidding? I mean, all day long. I mean, it was, it's a no-brainer. And by the way, they're not done. They got more litigants to go. I think in the end, this was a slam dunk case based on the evidence that we saw. This is a very small company that had a couple of deals with some different states and municipalities once every 2 years or once every 4 years. They helped them count ballots. They were not evil. They had nothing to do with Hugo Chavez. They didn't fake the thing. They did nothing essentially wrong other than, they may have sucked at what they did in a couple of places. There was no major conspiracy. That was easy. Everybody knew that. And yet here's this big, giant corporation, perhaps one of the biggest in the world, picking on them. And they have the goods. They have the evidence. They got them saying, no, these guys are fine. We're just going to make this crap up and put it on the air because it makes good TV. I mean, it was a horrible case for Fox. I mean, a horrible case. And it goes down to the essence of, the what is a real turpitude in what we call journalism. It's a lie, actual malice, you go through every New York Times case, every Butts case that exists in our in journalism, law and in libel law. And this thing basically met every one of those standards and surpassed it. So do I believe this is the worst thing that can happen in journalism, that somebody can be irresponsible enough to do what Fox did to this small company? No. There's other journalism companies out there, including other cable networks, who lie all the time, but not lie in such a way so that it is so provable in court, like this one was. This one was a slam dunk. It was a slam dunk in a court case, and it was a little guy being put upon, trampled, if you will, by a big giant guy. They had no chance. They had to settle, so they did. But I think this creates some people are going on, oh, this is the future now, everybody's got to be careful. No, this was just really stupid, and Fox had it coming to them, and they deserve what they got.
Rick, I don't want to get you in any trouble, but you're alluding to what in your experience has been, as you were talking to.
Oh, because I've never been in trouble.
No, fair enough, but far more egregious what we can consider, violation of journalism ethics.
Yeah.
In your experience, and again, just from where you stand, what have been some instances where you have, as an accomplished journalist, seen what goes on behind the scenes or through the words or deeds of colleagues that have really just kind of just disappoint you in the field?
It's not what you say. It's not the provable cases. It's what I know I wasn't allowed to say that I think is as egregious. I think while working at CNN, and I know when I watch cable news now, whether it's CNN or Fox or MSNBC, that and this is what we were talking about, Mike, earlier today. I know they know better. I know they know the war in Yemen is wrong, where 50,000 kids have died. I know when they interview General Petraeus and they don't tell me that he has a contract with a military company, or Pratt Whitney, and that they're paying him hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yet I'm asking him, should we send more, arms to wherever, Ukraine? And he's saying, oh, absolutely. And I'm not telling my viewers, wait, he works for one of those arms companies. That's terrible. That's horrible journalism. When you do a story about Latin America and you don't tell the story of what our CIA did in places like Panama and Colombia and the civil war that we started, in Guatemala that killed 200,000 people. When you don't include information that is vital for a viewer's understanding of that story, and that, but you also know that if you say that, your editors are going to give you all kinds of shit, you're also being dishonest. Is it a case that's going to be lost in court? Can some poor mother who lost her child because of the Guatemalan civil war going to come after you? No, but it's also wrong. And I could go on in cases like that, where there are people who work today at the New York Times, at the Washington Post, at CNN, Fox, wherever the hell you are. They know the difference between right and wrong. They even, if you looked at their private emails, you would find private emails no different than the one that Tucker Carlson wrote about, where he said he thinks Trump's a jerk, but then at the same time, he went on and praised him on TV. That same kind of thing happens all over the place in journalism today. And it bothers me because it shouldn't. And yes, it is comparable to a certain degree. No, it's not going to lose a case. No, you're not going to be taken into court, but it's also bad and egregious in my mind, because it goes against what I believe is honest and true, and what we as a country need to do to make us a better democracy.
You want to hear more gold nuggets like this man, I'm telling you, check out the Rick Sanchez podcast, download it, listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. I gave him a free plug there. I am so grateful to you, sir, for not only your friendship, but also for showing me the way to do it, to get on television. Obviously, you did it a little harder road through traditional means. I'm doing it a little bit different. I'm still going to go on MSNBC because they invite me on. But
I'm kidding you. You should, and you do a good job, and it's great. And listen, my job is to challenge all of our institutions. So I go after all of them, and I want to be as ubiquitous as possible. Guys like you and I and Nick, we're smart enough to know that if tomorrow I got a chance to go on Chinese TV or Israeli TV or Iran TV or whatever, Palestinian TV, go tell your story. Stories are more important than anything else, and we need to get away from silos. No more silos. Truth doesn't live in silos. It lives in the open expression of ideas. So be on MSNBC. And if Fox calls you, be on there too, Michael.
I will. Rick Sanchez. Check out his podcast, Rick Sanchez Podcast. Rick, I can't thank you enough for being on the program. Continue success, sir, and stay safe.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, thanks for watching the Can We Please Talk podcast. Whatever clip you just watched, we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you stick around for some more. Subscribe to the channel. My partner's over here smashing the button. Come on, do him a favor. So hit subscribe.